Live.
Good evening, everyone. This is Mamta Sharma from HR Support Foundation, and today we are here with the 19th episode on irrational beliefs in our live masterclass for therapists, TruTalks for therapists, a live masterclass for mental health professionals. And to answer our questions, we have with us Nitin Shah, founder and director, iChars and iChars Support Foundation. Good evening and welcome, Nitin.
Good evening, Mamta. How are you?
I'm good. And before we take off, I would like to remind everyone, as usual, to keep liking, commenting, sharing, and starting watch parties on your Facebook profiles so that we can share this with more and more mental health professionals. So, Nitin, and I would also like to remind everyone to share any questions that you may have from previous episodes, discussions, any cases that you would like to discuss in light of whatever we have discussed so far, or in with reference to our discussion this evening. So, Nitin, yesterday we were talking about unhelpful thinking styles, how to identify them, and how to work with them, right?
Yes.
Which now brings us to our second bonus episode on identifying and working with irrational beliefs,
Perfect.
right?
Yes.
So, to begin at the beginning, how do we define what is irrational?
So, Mamta, there are a couple of ways of defining irrational. One
Hmm.
is in the sense that is more generic, and
Hmm.
second, in a way which is more individual and more personal, right? Uh,
Okay.
in terms of a generic understanding of irrational, I think Dr. Albert Ellis from REBT gave a really clear understanding of that when he
Right.
mentioned that any idea is irrational if one, it distorts reality,
Hmm.
second, it is illogical,
Hmm.
third, it prevents you from reaching your goal,
Hmm.
or leads to an unhealthy emotion, or leads to a self defeating behavior.
Okay. All right. Uh, but Nitin, while you say this, wouldn't so we have already discussed that we have different maps. How we perceive reality is different. The facts that we may have will be different. The kind of information we all have access to will vary. Now, based on that, wouldn't the definition of logical or rational also vary from one individual to another? So then, how can we have like one standard definition of what is rational and what is irrational?
So, can you give me an example of where the logic would change from people to people?
Okay, so let's say, people are afraid of dogs, right?
Yes.
So, on one hand, are people who are very comfortable. They have no issues with dogs. Then there are people who are slightly afraid of dogs. And then there are people who would jump and shriek, and maybe they have seen somebody literally being torn to pieces by a dog. Then their fear or phobia or that irrational response to seeing a dog will become quite rational, wouldn't it?
So that's exactly what I meant earlier. That there are actually two ways of looking at irrational. One is from a generic point of view, and second is
Right.
more from a personal point of view, right?
Correct.
So when we talk about a generic point of view, like the one that I narrated earlier, which comes from
Right.
Dr. Albert Ellis, uh,
Right.
if you look at all the five factors that we spoke about, right?
Hmm.
Then in combination when all of them are present, it makes sense that it would be illogical, irrational, right? Because you're
Correct.
not just using illogical. There are like multiple reference points which are being used. uh, I think there was one that we distort reality. Then there's illogical. There's also the fact that it's stopping us from reaching our goals, um, that
Right.
it's unhealthy in terms of emotions, so and self-defeating behaviors, right? So if a
Be is right.
particular idea is leading to all five of these,
Huh.
then it kind of makes sense that it would be to call that the idea would be rational because it's leading to all five of them,
Correct. Okay.
right? Having said that, personally speaking, I would prefer the second method, which is more like person centric when it comes to working with irrational beliefs,
Okay.
right? Where for me the idea would be to allow the client to determine or define what is rational and what is irrational.
Okay.
Now, what that really means is that when a client comes and tells me that I know I'm doing something where the response is far more exaggerated than what it should be, and even if I have a belief that's driving that behavior, that belief will not be rational because it's the response is really exaggerated. Take the example of phobia,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Most clients will actually tell us that I know the way I behave in terms of a phobia is irrational, but I just can't control it,
Right.
right? So that's
Correct.
where I would call it irrational from a client's point of view,
Okay.
right? Now, when the client gives me the definition, it actually makes my life easier because the moment the client has already acknowledged that my belief is irrational, then
Yeah.
I could simply use something like fast phobia cure, which is really, really quick in terms of its results,
Perfect.
right? But if the client says that they have a particular belief that they feel is justified,
Okay.
right? Like you mentioned, our understanding of justification comes from the information that is available to us,
Correct.
which means that's a part of the map that we have.
Yes.
So if the client believes a particular belief to be rational, then they probably have some information in their map that we don't have, that they are interpreting in a way in which that's giving them conviction that their current belief is rational,
Correct.
right? Now, whether their beliefs are rational, irrational is not what I would focus on. I would begin by focusing on exploring what is the basis on which they are coming to this conclusion.
Right.
Now, when we identify the basis of this belief, then, well, it may help us understand where the client is coming from. That doesn't necessarily mean that their beliefs are right or wrong. It simply means that
Okay.
we are able to understand their map more clearly, more effectively,
Okay.
right?
That
So,
makes
for
sense.
example, when you spoke about the person who has seen someone to be torn apart by dogs,
Yeah.
now, obviously, for that particular person, uh, as per their map, it's rational to run away from dogs.
Correct.
Similarly, there could be other people who may have had certain past experiences which become a basis for the belief they have. That doesn't mean that those past experiences would justify the clients holding on to those beliefs, even when it's kind of creating a problem in their life,
Right. Right. Right.
right?
Right.
But as I said, they at least give us an understanding of where the client is coming from, and that can help us in finding better non-confrontational ways of working with clients.
Okay. So how do we do that? How do we work with these beliefs?
So there are, I think we covered this earlier in the belief episode, but I'm just going to summarize this. That
Right.
in the way I look at it, broadly speaking, there are two ways of working with belief.
Hmm.
One, as I mentioned, is that we look at the irrational beliefs that we are going to talk about right now, already begin from a point of view that these beliefs are irrational, and the objective predominantly is to confront the client,
Okay.
to dispute the belief,
Okay.
right? In this case, our focus is more on proving that the client is wrong.
Hmm.
Now, while it may work in a lot of cases, it is also
Hmm.
true that in certain cases, the client may either feel offended or may feel that they are not being understood, or that they may not even want to continue with the session,
Yep. That happens. Yes.
right? And then there is the problem where clients, while we are confronting them because they become defensive, they feel it's just they feel almost as if they are compelled to defend their point of view.
Huh. True.
And if they don't continue for sessions as long as it is required, then they may end up convincing themselves that they were right or they were correct.
Right.
So while confrontation is one strategy and can be very useful with certain clients, it
Hmm.
also needs to be used with care and concern,
Right.
right? And then the second one is what we spoke about earlier, that we understand where are these beliefs coming from, we explore the beliefs together, and as we are exploring the beliefs together, either we would reach a place where the client would be able to eventually give a specific set of instances that have led to this particular belief, and then we can help them either change their perception about those particular experiences or help them uh, create a distance from those particular experience, or maybe make them realize how it was not those experiences but certain skills that they may have not had at that time that they have today, or that they have the ability to develop in future, that are cause of the belief and not just the past experiences. So basically then we can become a part of the client's map, explore the map and start changing it from within. So rather than confronting it from outside, it's like expanding from within,
Right. That does
right?
make sense.
Correct. So when we understand these beliefs that we are going to talk about, the idea is to use them as a reference point. So not because you want to prove that the client is wrong, but because you want to explore where the client is coming from,
Right. Okay.
and then be able to work with the client in a way in which hopefully not too much of a confrontation would be required. That doesn't mean that we will not use confrontation at all. If it's required, it's required. But if we can have alternate ways of working with it, which are as fast or even faster, then it kind of makes sense,
Correct.
right? So for
Okay.
all of you who are watching the video right now, while I am going to describe each of the beliefs, and we will look at what are the possible problems that the client has because of these beliefs. Just remember that uh, keep these points in mind, that it's not necessarily that we are understanding these beliefs because we want to out and out confront them, but there are other ways of working with these beliefs also. It's just that keep them as a reference point.
Right. Perfect. Perfect. And Nitin, before I start asking you what these beliefs are, there is a question by Jagriti. She's saying a girl client having sexual obsessive thoughts towards every male member, including her own family members, disturbs her and leads to uncontrollable panic attacks. She mentioned that sexual thoughts are so intense that she will feel that all those actions are happening with her. This also led to compulsive behavior of checking whether the door of the room is locked or not so that no one can enter the room, and many other behaviors. She has history of sexual abuse in childhood by her servant. She has been in therapy for months, and currently major thoughts which disturbs her is the most is fear and anxiety that what if those thoughts will come again. What to do in this case?
Okay. Now, if she has been in therapy and if she has been able to get over those thoughts,
Hmm.
right? And the fear now is that what if they come back? Because when you say what if the thoughts come again, I'm assuming that means that the thoughts are right now no longer there.
Correct.
If that is the case, then you can actually work towards helping them develop a belief that one, they've been able to overcome these thoughts once, so they would also be able to overcome it later on. That conviction, that confidence can actually be helpful for them. Teach them strategies which will help them restructure those thoughts if required. When we are talking about beliefs, so as to say, in this case, because she has had a history of sexual abuse, I'm not sure what is the therapist done with her in terms of the processes and so on. But if those memories still kind of come back in in her mind, and those memories are driving a lot of other things that are happening in her life, then in order to work with the beliefs and the current set of thought patterns that she has, I may also look at exploring what we spoke about in terms of psychoanalysis.
Okay. Okay. I hope Jagriti that helps you. Arna is saying, I want to know how important it is for a therapist to be mentally healthy. What are the day to day practices that can be beneficial for a person to avoid negative thoughts about the past or apprehension about the future?
So, all right, how important is the therapist's mental health? It is very important. It's very important because one, only if the therapist is mentally sound or mentally healthy would they be able to ensure that their biases don't interfere with the therapy, right? And from a therapy point of view, that's a very, very important criteria.
Correct.
Uh, Second, obviously, if the therapist is not mentally healthy, then by the time they meet other people who may require help, there is a possibility that the therapist may have transference in terms of, or counter transference in terms of the feelings that they are having, right? And that can actually lead to some more complications which are neither healthy for the client nor the therapist. um, so yes, the mental health of the therapist is extremely important, but don't confuse mental health with that the therapist should not have any problems in their life, because every individual, including all therapists, will have some or the other challenges at some point or the other in their life. That may not necessarily mean that they are mentally not healthy. uh, it's just that are the therapists capable of coping up with what's happening in their life? And if they are not able to cope up with it by themselves, are they open to go and seek help from other therapists while ensuring that their problems are not interfering with the therapies that they're taking? As long as that's taken care of, I think we are good to go. But if the therapist's internal issues are influencing the therapy, that is a bit of a concern. And that actually happens to a large extent, including therapists believes in certain concepts and certain ideas interfering with what the process of therapy would ideally be.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then
And
what are the
now,
practices?
yeah.
Mamta, you were saying something?
No, no, I was just saying that I hope she's got her answer. Yeah, please.
Correct. And she's also asked what are the day-to-day practices that can be beneficial for a person to avoid negative thoughts about past or apprehensions about future. So, Aparna, one, it's not a question of just avoiding negative thoughts. All of us at some point or the other have certain thoughts which may be negative, right? So the idea also is to be able to acknowledge and understand that there are places where, well, things will not happen as per the way we would like them to be, and we will have certain thoughts which are negative. Having said that, understanding that doesn't mean that we don't work towards also being able to minimize the quantum of those thoughts that we have, right? So while acceptance of the fact that there are places where we will have thoughts which may not be healthy, or I wouldn't say healthy, but which may be negative, so as to say, is possible. But we should also be able to kind of push them aside or put them aside when required. As far as being able to translate our thoughts from negative to positive, if you recognize that there are certain negative patterns of thinking that you have, it's not just there are specific instances that may once in a while make you think negative, but there are patterns of negative thoughts that you have, then in that case, we discussed about when then technique in one of the earlier episodes. That's extremely useful. I would probably begin from there. And if negative thinking has become like a habit, it's like it's not just about specific situations that I'm thinking negative, but those negative thinkings are is like almost an underlying theme in my life, then I may start looking at working with beliefs of positive intention. I hope, Anna, that gives you your answer.
Yep. Yeah, quite comprehensively, I must say. Okay. Uh, so, Nitin, can we start looking at these irrational beliefs one by one?
Yes, we can. Before that, since some of you have said hi to us, hello everyone. Very happy and very good to see you all over here.
And keep sharing your questions and examples of each case or each concept that we are going to talk about.
Perfect. So, Mamta, you asked right now.
What are these beliefs? How many are there and what are they?
Okay. So, as per with what Albert Ellis spoke about, there are 11 irrational beliefs, and he later classified them into three, let's say, core beliefs, or three what are known as the major musts.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, yeah, let's look at each of these beliefs like one by one to understand how it influences the clients who comes to us, and why are these considered to be irrational.
Right.
Okay. So the first belief is it is a dire necessity for an adult human being to be loved or approved by virtually every significant other person in his community.
Okay.
Now, remember, beliefs create a problem because beliefs are broadly generalized, huh?
Beliefs are
Right?
generalizations per se, right?
Correct. So, and that's also so when we talk about these irrational beliefs, the reason they're irrational is because they're also very generalized. If the idea is I would like one person to like me, that's probably still a desire. I wouldn't call it a belief. But if I start saying that everyone in my community should love me or like me, now that's asking for something.
Right. Right.
And it's almost impossible for us to be liked or loved by everybody, because whether we like it or not, there are people who will have difference of opinion with us. And then also, how do we really know whether people like us or love us or not? When they agree with us, they may not be agreeing with us because they love us, but because they agree with the point of view that we have. When they disagree with us, they may love us a lot, but they disagree with the point of view. So how do I really know whether someone completely loves me or not?
Correct.
Right? So the belief that everyone in my community should love me and I should be approved by all of them uh, is asking for too much,
Hmm.
right? Now,
Correct.
if someone has this belief, then imagine the amount of time and energy that they would be investing in making people happy because they want those people to love them,
Correct.
right? uh, will they even be able to take care of themselves if they are going to focus so much on others and others approval and others love?
No, no, of course no. Like there are people no who like in work in the workplace or even in family who keep putting their needs aside. In fact, may not even recognize their own needs because they are trying to fulfill everyone else's needs.
Perfect.
Right.
So, and that's obviously a problem that the client, that is one of the problems that the client will bring to us, right?
Hmm.
There are people who come and say that I have so much to do for everyone else that मेरे पास अपने लिए time ही नहीं बचता है. I don't have enough time
Ah,
for myself.
exactly, exactly. Right, right.
So this would be one of the problems that they would be facing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is this clear for all of us?
Yes, and I hope some people can share examples. I know of a person who is, and you'll have to tell me whether this is an example of this kind of belief that that if I say no, what will the other person think of me? That kind of thought may stem from this irrational belief.
It may. So the idea is that I can't say no to people because if I say no, then they will not love me, and because it's a must for me to be loved by them, I have to do what is required to be done, which is not to say no.
Right. Hemali is saying Mother India.
Mother India. That's a good
Good,
example.
good example. Okay, a lot of people just joined. It seems. Okay. Hi, good evening. All
So
right.
hello, good evening, everyone.
All right. So it would be great if you can share some examples of people around you or any clients that you know.
Acha, also, before we go ahead, I wanted to ask all of you that now that we are coming to an end of this particular series, and there's already another series that we have started at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Side
We
talks.
wanted to we wanted to understand that in future, if we want to do more series, what time would suit most of you? So please also let us know. Still think of it as a 1 hour slot, but do let us know what would be the time frame that you feel would be the best time for all of you to be able to join us when we have future series also, because
Yeah,
there
that's
are a lot of initiatives and plans that we have in terms of working for the mental health practitioners. Our understanding is that a lot of people seem to talk about um, mental health of individuals, but no one really is focused on the mental and emotional and financial health of practitioners. So that's what we want to focus on extensively.
right. Perfect. Meanwhile, Nitin, Rajeshwari is saying, does it originate from insecurity?
Well, all beliefs to an extent would initiate from some of the other insecurities or some of the other experiences that we have.
Right. Right. Okay, Nidhi is saying, I'm yet to see someone else who soaks us into the talk like the two of you. And this why these sessions being late for me. Awesome show. Thank you, Nidhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nidhi. Thank you, everyone.
Jagriti is saying, can you mention the belief in the comments, please?
All right, so I'm mentioning the first belief that we have spoken about first.
Oh, Nitin, we have all kinds of time slots in the comments.
Okay, that was the idea. I wanted to know how many time slots are coming. So we'll then later on probably look at which time slot
Yeah,
is being asked by for most of the people.
right. Uh, okay. Himali is saying, although 10 is late, but this is so interesting, I stay awake.
Thank you.
Okay. And while you write, can I share a case that Trinka has shared?
Yes, you can.
A client came crying in one of the sessions on his birthday that no one wished him. He was upset because he makes sure to make everyone feel special, but no one wished him.
Correct. So the idea that uh, people that I should be loved and I should be appreciated by people, and that is then reflected in the fact that they are wishing me or not, is going to create problems for the clients, right? And that's where this becomes an irrational belief that yes, while I may expect people to wish me, I may prefer that people wish me, but they're not wishing me if it really, and it can slightly bother me, but if it really upsets me to an extent where I cry and I howl, then obviously it's a bit of a concern.
Correct. Because she's saying the client came crying, right? Okay. So, Nidhi is saying at times people can't say no for no specific reason or just the love of work, just for the love of work, even though it disrupts their personal schedule. Is that irrational?
Uh, Nidhi, it would depend upon whether it's interfering with something else that they want to do. So if they say that I love my work so much that I continue working, but in that my personal life is gone for a toss and that's bothering me, then well, it's irrational because there it is creating a problem in another area of your life. But if people are able to balance it out in a way in which they are able to work and enjoy the work, and yet it doesn't disrupt other part of their life or other areas of their life, then well, that's good for them.
Zenith is saying if I say lies, then I feel uncomfortable.
Zenith, lying would probably be still different. Here, the idea in this particular belief is more about the fact that I want to be loved, and I have to be loved, and I have to be accepted by people around me. So it's more about, and at times, even if I have to lie to be accepted and loved, that's okay.
Right. Okay. So I think that's
In fact,
quite
so
clear.
when Nidhi was talking about saying no, so I'm actually sharing an example of how you can work with no. It's so interesting that there was a client who once came and told me that Nitin, I can't say no to anyone, right?
Okay.
And this is like gross generalization in the sense it's not that I can't say no to people whom I love or people who are close to me. I can't say no to anyone. So I told the client that after some time, there is the peon who's going to come in and who's going to ask you for a cup of tea. I want you to say no to him.
Okay.
She looks at me and she says, no, no, how can I say no to her? No to him. I can't say no to anyone. So I told her, do you realize you've just said no to me?
Right.
Right? Now that actually made her realize that it's not that I'm not saying no to anyone. I am able to say no to certain people. I just said no to my therapist. And then I asked her, what is the difference between where you're able to say no and where you're not able to say no? And then she said, when someone is doing something good for me or someone is expecting something from me, then I'm not able to say no. And then you can kind of drill it down further.
Perfect. Perfect. So that's, I think, a beautiful example of helping the client realize or understand what is in their map without like outright disputing them, right?
Yeah, so this is also basically called we kind of bind the client. So, like if a client comes and says that I am not confident in anything, and you ask the client, are you completely confident that you're not confident about anything? Now, that is a very, if you say I'm confident, that means I at least know what confidence feels like. And if I say no, I'm not sure if I'm not confident about everything, that means there's still a scope about an area where I'm confident about.
Correct. Correct. Nitin, Arna is saying my client has PTSD because of her past relationship. She says that she's having those flashbacks in her mind that is very traumatic for her. She was mentally abused and she questions her own beliefs and values because of the past. She now feels that no one will put up with her because of her certain behaviors. How can I help her?
Okay. So Anna, there are a couple of things there. So there is the trauma that's there, and if that traumatic flashes are still coming in her head, then probably the fast phobia cure that we actually did a demo of it on the in the episodes, right, Mamta?
Yes, by the way, no lizards around. Huh?
By the way, yes,
I
that
know you were
reminds me,
going to ask
lizards.
that
Did you?
next. They seem to have disappeared completely.
All right. So actually, I'll come to that's an interesting thing that once you stop fearing certain things, they you also stop kind of noticing them around you, even if they're there. Anyways, So coming back to Anna, the idea is that the fast away cure, there is a complete demonstration of it. Probably you would like to go through it in one of the previous episodes. That will be one of the things that I would use for the trauma or to help her deal with those flashes. Second, about her belief that no one will put up with her because of the behaviors that she has. I would want to also understand which are those behaviors and how can we help her modify those behaviors, provided she wants to modify them. And if she wants to modify them, then that would be the second line of work. And the third would be to make her, to help her kind of recognize that no one is perfect. Everyone has certain flaws here and there, and
Right.
people don't really stop being with people because of certain flaws that they have, right? So you have to kind of help them create a distinction between their behaviors and their and who they think they are. They are not their behaviors. They are a lot more than their behavior. Now,
Perfect.
how would you do that? If the idea is to help them change their behaviors, one is go back to the when then statement that we spoke, that we looked at, which can probably help them change the thought patterns that they have, change their emotions, and help them change their behaviors. But if the behaviors are like persistent and they've literally become automated, then the reframing process that we looked at would be a very useful process. I think we looked at it in the there was a complete episode on working with positive
Positive.
intentions. So that's the episode where we have spoken about the positive intention activity and how to go about doing it.
Perfect.
I hope that
Uh,
answers your question.
yes. Rajeshwari is saying, is it not okay to expect anything from anyone?
So Rajeshwari, the way I look at it, it's okay for us to expect things from people, but it's not okay for us to expect that all our expectations will be fulfilled, because there is
Never
no
the
one around. Right? Matlab, it's kind of impossible for us to fulfill everyone's expectations. Similarly, it's impossible for people around us to fulfill all our expectations. The problem that we face with expectations is the few expectations which are not being met overpower a lot of the other expectations that are being met. And then we keep harping on those few things. And we will come to one of the beliefs that will kind of talk about this particular thing.
Yeah, that's a great insight, by the way. Okay. Nidhi is saying confrontation? Question mark.
So, Nidhi, we were looking at how at times beliefs can be disputed through confrontation, where you can literally start from a point of view where certain beliefs are false, and then you are working with the client to prove to the client that these beliefs are wrong. Now, there a lot of therapists end up using confrontation. While it's a useful strategy, it's not a strategy that I would suggest for you to use overly. Matlab, it can be used in sparing cases where required, but in most of the cases, confrontation with therapy with clients can be avoided.
Okay. Fair enough. Jagrati is saying, agree on your in laws' point of view, even when you don't agree on that, in a dire necessity of being loved with all the family members of my husband because I love my husband the most. Is this correct?
So I love my husband the most is uh, is probably the reason that the client is telling you. But before that, because you've mentioned that because of the need for being loved, if that need for being loved is driving her decision, then yes.
Okay. Atri is asking, lack of assertiveness makes us unable to say no or some other reason.
So lack of assertiveness makes us unable to say no is correct, but the reason why we are not being able to become assertive is many a times driven by the current beliefs that we are talking about.
Fair. Right. Arna is again talking about the relationship, the girl with PTSD. Also, help me with how to deal with her anxious attachment style.
So Anna, with anxiety or with yeah, even attachment that is driven by anxiety, what I would do is I would generally use metaphors to begin with. We had done, I think I'd shared a video on transformation metaphor for anxiety that has been phenomenal for us. The kind of results that I've got with that process has actually surprised me many a times, which I think I've said this earlier, which is rare in terms of the work that we do now. But the metaphor process is extremely useful. Apart from that, as far as anxiety is concerned, if the anxiety is irrational and she agrees that the anxiety is irrational, then again the process that we spoke about PTSD can be used for anxiety also, as long as she has a specific trigger associated to that. But if she does not have a specific trigger associated to that, if the anxiety is more underlying uh, feeling that she's carrying in her life, then probably starting with metaphor, and if required, doing an inner child would be useful. If you're not sure what these techniques are, you may have to refer back to some of the previous episodes, because we have kind of done detailed explanations about some of these processes.
Perfect. Bhavya has a comment.
For inner child, you may have to refer to the video on working with intense negative emotion.
Emotions, yes. Perfect. Bhavya is saying, I think with fast phobia cure, Mamta ma'am has even forgotten how a lizard looks, that she's not able to see it around her. Nitin was going to explain that, Nitin.
But I'm waiting, because as we go ahead, there's a particular belief that will come up, and then I'll refer to it over there.
Perfect. Perfect. So, okay. Rajeshwari is saying, is there a formula to handle irrational thoughts?
So, Rajeshwari, the idea with thoughts is it's important to understand that many a times thoughts are triggered by specific instances, which means the instances are not responsible for the thoughts, but our mind reminds us when to think of those thoughts, right? For example, there are people who may be currently stressed about the fact that we are in a lockdown and that there's a pandemic that is there, but they are not necessarily having irrational thoughts 24/7 about it. But the moment they switch on the news channel, or when someone else is talking about family members are talking about finances, is when those thoughts actually become like really repetitive. Now, if there are specific triggers that are triggering those irrational thoughts, which means those are the triggers where our mind remembers that it's time for us to think those thoughts, then we can use the when then statement to be able to restructure those thoughts. And when then can be very powerful for that. Alternatively, if there are not, like I spoke about anxiety, for some people, certain negative thoughts become like a second nature,
Hmm.
right? If that is the case, then if it's not driven by a deeper, intense negative emotion or insecurity, I would probably look at reframing. If it is driven by deeper insecurity, then I'll probably look at either metaphors or inner child or regression.
Perfect. Thank you
Right?
for
But if
that.
the question is about self, that is there a formula for us to handle our own irrational thoughts, then the easiest is when then statement.
Yesterday we said mindfulness and then, right?
Correct. So, and in yesterday's episode, we have spoken about working with the irrational thoughts, right? So, those strategies can be useful.
Great. So now can we move on to the second irrational belief?
Yes, we can. So, the second irrational belief is one should be thoroughly competent, adequate, and achieving in all possible respects if one is to consider oneself worthwhile. What's the one?
Hmm?
In the belief, there are too many ones. So one should, I've just mentioned it in the comment, one should be thoroughly competent, adequate, and achieving in all possible respects if one is to consider oneself worthwhile.
Hmm. Right.
Right? Now, Mamta, when you hear this, again, can you notice the exaggeration in the belief? Competent at everything. I understand I want to become really good at what I do, or at certain things that are important for me. But to say that I have to be thoroughly competent at everything or in all possible respects, the exaggeration again is huge.
Hmm.
And
Correct.
is that even
It,
possible?
no, it's not, and it feels like that as if the entire world has descended on my shoulders.
Correct. Now, when we talk about this particular belief, what are the possible problems with which the clients will come to us? And I would like all of you are also watching the video to share cases where you feel that this problem may be coming from this belief.
Right. So, Nitin, as I said, that even while listening to it, I'm feeling overwhelmed. So, someone who's living with that irrational belief and acting accordingly would, and expecting that from themselves, would obviously be perpetually overwhelmed, I'm sure. So, for
Okay.
example, I had this one client who was, good at the technical IT side of the business, right? But he was not good with marketing, and he always kept fretting about the fact that how he's not good at it, and would not even recognize how good he is where he's good.
And then as a result, do you notice how some of these people would not even seek help from other people when they can? Because the
Yeah,
idea is that I have to be competent at it, so
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Perfect. Jyoti is saying perfectionist,
perfectionist.
and Jagrati is saying to be an all rounder.
To be an all-rounder perfectionist.
Nisha Agarwal is saying Amir Khan.
Don't know Amir Khan personally, so can't say.
Yeah. Uh, no, that kind of image is projected through media that he takes a lot of time because he wants everything to be perfect. But that could be just how he's shown to us. We don't know. Okay. Prashanti is saying, once upon a time, I was one of such people. And Nidhi is saying, perfectionist parenting probably instills the same into their children. Bhavya also said Amir Khan. We should tell Amir Khan. Okay. Bubai is saying most perfectionists, I think, would carry this belief.
Correct.
Trinka
And
is
so
saying,
here also,
"Atul,
please remember, at times perfectionists seek perfections from other people also, right? Here the idea is not perfection from other people. Here the idea is I have to be competent.
right. Uh, okay. Bhakti is saying superwoman. And Trinka is saying this client all rounder in school failed in CA final.
Hmm.
And Sumalata is saying type A personality.
Perfect. So I hope this is becoming clearer for all of us.
Yep.
Eh? In fact, with places where people want to be competent at everything, there's also a problem at times with delegation because they feel that they are so competent at everything that delegation becomes difficult.
I can do this better.
One is I can do this better, and second, even if I can't, then I have to become competent enough to do it better.
Hmm. Right, right. Nidhi is saying being good is a way of life I was taught. But then I think, Nitin, there would be a fine line, right? When it crosses into the realm of irrationality.
The idea, Mamta, is competent at everything, and therefore, when I began, I actually said that look at the exaggeration over there. It's not just competence. Obviously, each of us, probably in the areas that we are working with, are striving towards competency and towards improving ourselves,
Which is fair, right?
which is okay. But the thing is that I have to be competent at everything,
Hmm.
and if
Right.
I'm not competent that at everything, then that would be a problem. That is where the concern comes.
So if I was taught that being good is a way of life, that may not really be irrational, is what I'm asking, right?
Correct.
Unless
So
it is the criteria that we define, leading to self-defeating behavior, unhealthy emotions, if it is preventing you from doing what you want to do, right?
correct, correct.
Prashanti is saying no one else can do it better than me.
No one else can do it better than me, and if they can, then I have to become competent enough to do it better than them.
Ah, that was interesting. Okay, I think time to move to the third one.
So the third one is certain people are bad, wicked, villainous, and that they should be severely blamed and punished for their villainy.
Hmm.
I'm typing it again.
Hmm.
So Nisha has mentioned new professionals feel they are good at everything. Nisha, one of the things where I've noticed this, with training especially, there are so many people who feel that because they can talk well, they can be good trainers.
Ah.
In fact, I've come across so many people because we do support groups and everything for trainers and therapists and so on. I've had so many people when we ask them what made you decide that you want to become a trainer. Oh, I thought I speak very well, so I thought I may as well make money out of it. So I became a trainer. And I'm an extremely good trainer. Why? Because I can speak well. So, well,
Okay. A lot of comments about the previous one. Bhavya saying Jack of all trade wants to be master of all.
correct.
Rajeshwari saying it leads to fault finding for self and others.
It leads to fault finding with self and others, especially with self in this case, because the competency is about themselves.
Nisha is saying can handle all aspects. By saying working with these kind of people would be extremely challenging, really.
Actually, it may be and it may not be. For example, some of these people, because they feel they're so competent and they want to become competent, they want to do everything. So if you're working with them, at times you might not necessarily need to work. They may do all the work because they feel that they are very competent or they want to develop competence in that area. So
Perfect.
whether it's extremely challenging to work with them or not would also depend upon how the person who is looking at the competence is being affected by it. But it would surely be creating some or the other problem in other areas of their life.
Correct. And Nitin, we also referred to when we were talking about phobias, how when something is extremely irrational, those issues might actually be the or fastest to work with.
Correct.
Okay.
So the
All
place
right.
where the client can recognize their irrationality, that is one of the fastest ways to work with. Uh, Even if they are getting very overwhelmed by that irrationality, even if they feel that they are not able to overcome it, but the moment the client recognizes their irrationality, then the processes from hypnosis and NLP can actually really transform people in a matter of a couple of sessions. The challenge is when they don't recognize their irrationality, and that's where we need to kind of slightly work. And we will talk about what we do with those, though we are already at 10:45.
Perfect. Arna is saying, I feel like I'm in the category of perfectionist, which many times comes in my way of doing and achieving things, which can be a hurdle in my day to day life as well. I either choose perfection or I don't choose anything at all. How can I make it better?
So Anna, just wait till the end because the perfectionist one is also a separate belief in itself. Uh, because it's not just about competence; it's also about that while I may be competent, it needs to be perfect. And that perfection is a slightly different thing. So we will come to that belief at the end. I hope I'll be able to answer your question at that time.
Okay. So, Nitin, talking about the bad, wicked, and the villainous.
Yeah. So the bad, wicked, and the villainous. So obviously, the idea with certain people is that uh, because you don't like some of their behaviors or some of their thoughts, these people may start considering those people as wicked and villains. So what happens is the person who has this belief is confusing people with their behaviors,
Like labeling yesterday.
like labeling yesterday. Right? Actually, it's labeling and it's more than that. But the idea over here is that you're confusing the person for their behaviors, and uh, you may not approve of something about them. That doesn't necessarily make that person so bad that you want them to be punished for that, right? And more than punished, the words are bad, wicked, and villainous. Matlab, those words are like really interesting.
Again, I think extreme exaggeration.
Correct. Now, the other set of problem with this is that when people believe that because people are bad, they need to be punished, and when they come across people who are not punished,
Hmm.
oh, that can really be unnerving for these people because they keep wondering how can someone get away with doing so much of bad. And then at times they start thinking, how can these people be punished? The amount of time they can invest in mentally trying to figure out a way to punish the other person is a real waste of time. They could probably use the time at a lot of other places, provided they want to use the time at some other place.
Right. Right. Trinka is saying, father with narcissism believes my son is useless. The son lost his job also. Father made sure to blame and make him worthless.
So here the idea is not just blame. Here the idea is that they should also be punished, and the punishment that the other person really receives for being bad kind of creates a sense of comfort for these people कि हाँ चल अच्छा हुआ उसको punishment मिला.
Perfect. Perfect.
So Mamta, if I have to ask you, can you think of a couple of examples where a client would come with this belief and how would that be influencing them? What kind of a problem they will bring to us?
Right. So Nitin, once there was this client who had came with a relationship issue. There was a lot of anger towards the partner, and during exploration, we realized that the anger is coming from the fact that there's somebody in the office who is wicked, as you said, and was
According to the client.
able to get away with it in the client's own words. So he's able to get away with it, and nobody seems to notice it, and nobody seems to. He's not, getting any punishment, which he should be. And because it was his workplace and he could not express it there towards that person, apparently that person was also his senior in some way. So that anger was getting shifted to the partner because partner was apparently an easy victim or available, so to say.
So obviously that does would create a lot of problem as far as the other areas of their life is concerned, right? Now the
In fact,
idea,
that is what they came with.
uh, so now the idea that the anger towards the boss is being taken out towards the family member
But
is basically a
yeah,
defense mechanism of displacement. We will talk about all of these defense mechanisms tomorrow now, because tomorrow's episode will be all about defense mechanism.
okay. Trinka is further talking about the father son example using words like Nikal Mere Ghar Se. And Prince is saying ego, anger, other depreciation plus demands.
So anger, ego, yes, demands, but the demands would be more about the punishment that the other person should receive.
Right. Atri saying, why only me? Those who are doing all wrong to us, living a good life. Where is the law of nature? They deserve strong punishment.
So they deserve strong punishment, and then some people would say karma would eventually catch up with them.
It's all, yeah. Also, like the heavens reward fallacy we were talking about yesterday. Kind of,
Correct,
right?
kind of, and a part of it.
So, Nitin, it's interesting how all this overlaps, or I now because we've talked about eclectic approach, how they are actually all this is connected. So, while we were talking about thoughts yesterday, we're talking about the deeper layer of beliefs today and how some of these beliefs could give rise to those unhelpful thoughts and obviously then create problems in the client's life.
It is, and at the same time, tomorrow when we talk about defense mechanisms, you will actually realize how defense mechanisms are also closely related to this. So while people who generally follow CBT and REBT don't necessarily subscribe to Freud's philosophies and defense mechanisms and id ego, superego, but when you
Right.
really look at it, there is a lot of synchronicity between the approaches. If you can distance yourself from the approach that you're using and look at them objectively. The problem also with practitioners at times is that they're married to the techniques that they're using. Well, they're so convinced that the technique that they're using is the only right technique that they're not able to see how each of these techniques are like a what should I say, like uh, like a part of a bigger system, and the system is what probably would create a lot more effectiveness.
Right. Right. It's like, one person saying kheer mein milk is the most important element, and the other one is saying chawal is the most important element, and the third one is saying the cook is the most important element. Right?
Correct.
Something like that. Perfect.
Something like what you mentioned yesterday when you spoke about the elephant and the five blind men,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Something like that. All right. So moving to the next one,
Yes.
it's awful and catastrophic when things are not the way one would very much like them to be,
Hmm. Correct. ऐसा नहीं हुआ
right?
तो मैं मर जाऊंगा, वो मुझे नहीं मिली तो मैं मर जाऊंगा.
Now, is this idea that everything has to be the way I want it to be, and if it's not that way, it will be catastrophic? Is this even sustainable? Can you actually have a situation where everything is exactly the way you want 365 days a year, 24/7?
No, obviously not. Obviously not.
So there are places where things will be to our liking, and there are places where they wouldn't be,
Yep.
right? But if
Exactly.
we are seeking that everything has to be the way we want it to be, then obviously that would lead to some amount of frustration, and it can really get exaggerated over a period of time,
Absolutely. Correct.
right? And then the problem also is that because our focus is so much on things that are not working, we are not able to focus on the things that are working in our life, which means we can't even enjoy the things that are the way we want it to be.
Right. Right. Control freaks, Himali Singh.
Control freaks. They want things the way they want it to be, and in relationships, many a times this is very common, where one of the partner or both partners want things exactly the way they want it.
Yes.
I mean, I remember there was uh, a person that we were speaking to some time back, and he mentioned that my husband wants things. Malab, if food has to be prepared, It has to be served to him at 11 o'clock in the morning. If you serve him food at 11:05,
Hmm.
uh, you have to just notice the tantrum he can throw. For him, the idea is that it has to be done and it has to be done at that point, at that time only.
Perfect. Right. Right.
And
Right.
if there's a delay of 5 minutes, the delay of 5 minutes is like catastrophic. It's almost like his entire day is ruined because of that food reaching 5 minutes late.
Perfect. Lakshmi is saying neurotic. Prince is saying nothing is 100% bad.
Correct. And yet, nothing can be 100% good. So that balance we have to kind of maintain and understand.
Right. Okay. Moving on.
So please do share any other ideas that you have about this irrational belief and about the cases that clients will bring us with this. I'm writing the next one.
Buba is saying this is looking for one's own perspective and wanting others to see the same.
Wanting others to see the same. And also there is actually more than seeing the same. It's the idea is that whether they see the same perspective or not, things have to still happen the way I want them to happen.
Right.
Matlab, whether you like it or you don't like it, that's a separate issue. Things still have to happen the way I want it to be.
Correct.
Perfect. So the next one is human unhappiness is externally caused, and people have little or no ability to control their sorrows and disturbances.
Hmm.
So, Mamta, I'm going to throw this to you. Tell me, think about it and tell me what would be the problem that people will face because of this. What will be the emotions? Unhappiness is externally caused, and people have little or no ability to control their sorrows and disturbances.
So obviously, no control over my happiness, no control over my sorrows either. Which means anything happens, I have no control. Which means I'll feel helpless and sad that I can't.
Perfect. So predominantly, the feeling turns out to be helpless, and then obviously the extension of that. See, so the thing is, people can physically harm us. That's true, right?
Right.
But whether our mental happiness depends on other people or not is a separate issue altogether.
Right.
You may have certain external situations that you may want to improve, that you may want to change in certain ways, and you may want to work towards it. That's brilliant. But to say that my happiness will depend on that,
Hmm. Correct.
right?
So some
So
people are saying helplessness, depression, blame game.
helplessness,
Yes.
depression, blame game, correct. All of them are correct. Playing victim, hopelessness too.
Hopelessness. Yes. Yes. Brilliant. Helplessness. Yes.
Brilliant. Going forward to the, is there any question for this one? Should I just go to the next one?
Playing victim, keep blaming others for my condition, self pity. Yeah.
So these are all good examples of the problems that the clients can bring to us when they have this particular belief.
Unable to take responsibility.
Which is actually true because the moment I feel that my happiness is dependent on someone else, I actually don't take responsibility for my happiness, right? And then if there are things that I can do to make myself happy, or if there are ways in which I can learn to be happy in the current circumstances, I don't want to work towards it because in my head, I'm already convinced that my happiness is not in my hand.
Correct.
By the way, I and Mamta actually before we started doing the True Talks for Therapists had done another series which was a 15 episode series on True Talks, which was more for normal people who are looking at understanding what's happening in their life and how to live a happier, healthier, more fulfilling life. Right. The first episode in that series, if I'm not wrong, was happiness. That's a very interesting
Happy.
episode to look at to understand what are the different layers of happiness and how happiness is derived out of different things and why there are times when people have all the things that they would require, but yet they feel unhappy.
Yeah. In fact, Nitin, I had a client who used to say that I have all the ingredients for happiness, but happiness doesn't happen.
So that's actually a good example. So that's a very interesting episode for understanding happiness.
Right. Lakshmi saying feeling stuck. Trinka is saying client said I am unhappy because my husband is unorganized. That's a good one.
That's
Okay.
again something that I've heard a lot of times. Either because my husband is unorganized or my wife is unorganized. But I am unhappy because of that. Right?
Perfect. Next.
So the next one
So
is if something is or may be dangerous or fearsome, one should be terribly concerned about it and should keep dwelling on the possibility of it occurring.
oh yes, I think this is like the right time to be talking about this belief. You know, the pandemic. So you said if something is dangerous, you should keep dwelling on it and be terribly concerned that it may come to pass. Actually, and I think a lot of people are Nitin going through that. You know, right now. So they're watching every news show. They're tracking the numbers of infected and dying and recovering people, which areas have been turned into containment zone. My dad is one of them, so he keeps watching news over and over and over again, and constantly worry, uh, not realizing that the worry will also be affecting his first mental and obviously physical health eventually.
Correct. So the thing is, uh, if something is dangerous, if you can be prepared for it, be prepared for it. That's brilliant. So if, for example, in the
Right.
current situation, when we look at taking precautions and being under uh, more of isolation or lockdown and so on, that's understandable because those are precautions that you are taking. But beyond those precautions, there's only a limit to what you can do, right? And in spite of all those precautions, if you keep worrying, that's not really going to help you, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
In fact, if anything, that excessive worry may affect our immunity even worse, which may then make us more prone.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay.
Right?
Rajeshwari is asking, where are those episodes of True Talks?
So, Rajeshwari, I'm sharing a link, which is the iChaz YouTube channel link. On that YouTube channel, we currently have different playlists. You can actually check for it. There is a complete playlist called True Talks, which is the previous one that I spoke about. And then the new episodes, the True Talks for Therapists is in a different series, which is True Talks for Therapists. Uh, that those episodes are like 4 days delay. The True Talk series is completely online right now.
So that's called True Talks, simply True Talks. Like
Simply
this
True
one is
Talks.
for therapists. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, then excessive worry about it is not really going to help us in that.
Right.
Right? And these are so when these people come to us for sessions, what would they be feeling?
Anxiety, worry,
So this was straightforward, right?
maybe even fear. Okay. Lakshmi is saying
Lakshmi,
these links never work.
Lakshmi, you will have to copy and paste the link. Apparently, if you are for some reason or the other, for certain people, Facebook is not converting the links into a link. It's just showing it as a text. So you may just want to copy and paste it.
Yeah, just copy the link instead of clicking on the image that automatically pops up. Okay. Or you could simply go to YouTube and look for iCharge online. Even
Yeah,
that
yeah.
also
The
works.
easiest is search for iChaz online YouTube.
And I personally recommend that you subscribe to them because we keep adding loads of valuable content there. Okay. Rajeshwari is saying palpitations. Yeah, right.
So the next one is it's easier to avoid than to face certain life difficulties and self responsibilities.
Hmm. But then, isn't it for some things it could be okay to do so in the short run, or is it always wrong or bad?
It's not a question of always bad or always wrong. It's a question of how it's affecting you both in the short run and in the long run, right? And that's the important distinction to keep in mind that there's a short run and there's also a long run. Now, uh, in the short run, avoidance may provide relief. There's no doubt about it. But what are you getting relief from? You are getting relief by actually delaying something that you think is important to be done, which then means you are delaying it. And if you keep delaying it, then in the long run, it has its own impact. Second, we have to like work so hard to strategize so that we don't take up that responsibility and we keep avoiding that responsibility. Okay? Oh, Samantha has just gone. I think she will come back in a couple of moments. So till then, I'll just cover this particular topic. Uh,
I'm back. You have to bring me to the frame.
oh, you're back. I have to bring you to the stream. All right.
Yes. Sorry. Okay, and while you're doing that, I'll just share what some comments are. Prince is saying addiction, procrastination. Rajeshwari is saying passing on tension to others.
All of them would basically be problems that will be faced because of what we're talking about right now. That's true. Right? Plus, imagine. So that's exactly what I was saying. That in order to avoid things, how much we have to work hard, how much we have to plan. It will actually be
Right.
easier and less efforting to really complete the task that we need to complete. And then there's the
Correct.
problem that if you don't complete it, and in future there are repercussions, and you feel guilty or you regret the fact that I should have done it when I had the time to do it.
Hmm.
So if there are responsibilities that are important, it's actually better to just take them and get done with them.
Right.
Right?
Can we say escapism? Say to buy.
Escapism would be one of the behaviors because of this.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay?
So
And
Nitin,
what would
these
be the
people
kind
would
feeling?
be. Yeah, I was just coming to that. Uh, okay. So if I'm avoiding, then obviously it will lead to anxiety at some point, because how long will I be able to avoid and postpone and escape?
Hmm. Hmm.
And uh, it could also be accompanied by guilt, because I should have done it earlier. Do it. I always end up doing this, right? And a feeling of overwhelm, because maybe I have a lot of tasks piled up and all that.
And in fact, many times people are delaying it because they're feeling overwhelmed.
Oh yeah. So, so then that's a cycle for them.
Correct. Any other comments, questions that are there, or can we move to the next belief?
So guilty. Himali said guilty. Atri said avoidance. Yes, they're all right. I think. Okay. So the eighth one now.
The eighth one is one should be dependent on others
Hmm.
and needs someone stronger than oneself on whom to rely.
One should be dependent. Wow. Okay.
Okay? Now,
Nitin again, but sometimes, as you know, if the belief that I should be competent in everything, I should be doing everything and perfectly, if that is irrational, then I would. I mean, I live in a society. I live in institutions like family, and so I would rely on others to some extent, wouldn't I?
so Mamta, there is a difference between I, in some cases, would need to depend on others and I should depend on others.
Okay.
It's the should, it's the exaggeration of the requirement which makes it irrational. So every belief in context is rational. Well, all the beliefs that we have spoken about, if you were to remove the exaggeration out of them, then to some
Okay.
extent those beliefs are a part and parcel of our life.
Got it. Got it. So always, it should always be like this, right?
Correct. So the
Okay.
idea that one should depend on others and need someone stronger.
Hmm.
Now imagine if you're in a relationship where you feel that your partner should be stronger than you so that you can take care of them, and you feel that and your partner feels that you should be stronger of them than them so that you can take care of them.
Hmm. Yep. That's a catch 22. Yeah.
Right? So that's where the concern comes, that again the exaggeration that I need one person like that. And then the other set of problems because of this is that when we say that I need someone like this, then there are things that I probably can do by myself that I can learn to do, but I would not because I'm depending on others constantly.
Right.
So
Prashanti
for
said,
example,
yeah. Yeah, please, please.
Yeah, you were saying Prashanti Singh
Submissive.
could be submissive. Actually, at
And
times they're submissive, at times they become aggressive because the other person is not being as strong as they would expect the other person to be.
right. Atri saying insecurity. Himali saying assuming I'm weak.
Assuming I'm weak. Also, it's the dependence that becomes a problem over here. Like in the previous one, the idea was I have to do. Well, in the competent one, the idea was that I have to be competent at everything. Here, literally,
Hmm.
the idea is that I'm not competent in anything, and I need someone else to take care of it.
Right. Right. So again, helpless, right? I would feel helpless if the other person is not up to it, and nobody can be up to it 24/7. So,
Correct. And then there are also possibilities where people may feel lonely because of this.
ha, right, right. Trinka is saying she waits for me to come home after work rather than going out and buying stuff herself.
You have to see what the reason is. At times, some people wait because they want to spend time with the partner. It's not that they're dependent on the partner to make certain decisions, but that they are just doing it because they want to spend time with the partner, and they're fine doing it. And in some cases, people have that issue because the idea is I can't do it by myself, so someone has to go with me. So I would rather wait than do it by myself. Then in the second case is where we are talking about the problem,
Correct.
right?
Okay. Jyoti
Next
saying
one,
low self-esteem.
low self-esteem. Yes, that would be correct. But low
Okay.
self-esteem can actually be there because of other things also.
Okay. Okay. Dependent
Then
personality
the next,
disorder. Lakshmi.
the name kind of sounds right. Um, the next one is one's past history is all important determiner of one's present behavior, and that because something once strongly affected one's life,
Hmm.
it should indefinitely have a similar effect,
Hmm. Right.
right? Now,
Hmm.
see, so the thing is, while it's we can't deny the fact that past experiences shape our beliefs and shape our life. So to that
Hmm.
extent, it's correct. But to say that it needs to continue shaping our life is kind of stretching it a bit too far,
Got it. Got it.
right? And that's where the problem happens that a lot of people start using it as an excuse.
लाइक मेरी तो किस्मत ही खराब है, मैं कुछ भी कर लूं तो कुछ होने वाला नहीं है.
किस्मत ही खराब है क्योंकि मैंने पहले बचपन में मेरे साथ कुछ हुआ था जिसकी वजह से
हाँ.
मैं तकलीफ में हूँ. ये तो मेरे पास्ट लाइफ के कर्मा है,
हाँ. करेक्ट.
right?
सो दे वुड
All
अगेन बी
of those will
फीलिंग
come over here
हेल्पलेस,
that
राइट?
they would feel helpless. That this would eventually create a lot of helplessness.
करेक्ट.
Right? In fact, this is one of the reasons why when we are doing, let's say, regression work, we are strongly of the point of view that when a client comes and asks why me, that is not a place where you should do regression, because there people are not seeking for solutions; they're seeking for justifications. And when that happens, the moment they get an answer which is in their past, they can literally hold on to that answer like their life depends on it. And then they would not be willing to change because they've got the answer that gives them a relief that, oh, I am not, malab, today is not a problem. The problem is coming from the past, and therefore I have to continue living with that problem.
राइट.
I
यप.
had a very interesting, I think I've shared this earlier in one of the episodes. But, anyways, one of these colleagues who had once told me that I have a problem in my life currently because I am going through malab, I'm having an affair, and I don't know what to do about it. So I asked him, malab, what's happening? And he says, the thing is that in my past life, my wife had an affair, and therefore, this is my way of karmically clearing the baggage. And I just had no idea what to tell him after that.
राइट.
Right? It's almost like because something happened in the past, it this has to happen the way this is happening as it's a result of what's happened in the past.
एंड व्हाट वाज ही एक्सपेक्टिंग फ्रॉम थेरेपी विद यू?
He hadn't come for a therapy. He was actually a colleague, so he's just come and he was speaking to me. So it was, malab, the conversation was quite interesting. He began by asking me, Nitin, what do you think about extramarital affairs? And I said, I don't think about them. And then I asked him that obviously if you're saying this, there's something. So just tell me what is the case. And then we kind of carried on with the conversation.
Right. Good. Okay. Some people are saying. Sumalata is saying wives complain, husband never listen, especially secrets. I think she's referring to
To the previous
the
one.
other person, the previous one.
Yeah.
Arup is saying escapism.
This is also for the
Escape.
previous one.
Yeah, Trinka is saying I can't drive alone. I think they're all about the previous one. Trinka is saying people always cheat me in relationships.
And when people say that people always cheat me in relationship because my father cheated my mother, and like that's a pattern that I have borrowed from my parents, then it's like coming from my history.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
So here with this belief, the predominant understanding is that not just that my past is influencing my present, it should
Hmm.
continue influencing my future because something happened in the past,
Right. And there is no changing that.
and there's no changing that, and that's where the concern comes from.
Right. Perfect.
Right?
Hmm.
uh,
What
then we move
next?
to the last two.
Yeah.
One should become quite upset over other people's problem and disturbances.
I think a lot of therapists fall in this category.
In fact, we were talking about this yesterday, right? That as
Yeah.
therapists, there are times when we feel that we can't help our family members, they are going through certain problems, and we get upset about it because we are not able to help them,
Correct.
right? So if there are people around you who are going through their problems, if they seek help, please be there to help them. But otherwise, it's not your business to help them when they're not asking for it,
Right.
right? And while I understand that we love people around us and we are concerned about them, but eventually they have a choice of their own to be able to
Right.
make their own mistakes and hopefully correct them. But then that again is a hope.
Nitin, lot of people will may counter this by saying कि पर उनको तो पता ही नहीं है ना कि उनको प्रॉब्लम है.
तो जब पता लगेगा they will seek help. If अगर उनको पता ही नहीं है तो then why would they listen to you?
Exactly. Atri saying projecting themselves into other situations. Yeah.
It does happen a lot of time. मतलब
Yes.
I a lot of students that we work with initially have told us this, that Nitin, the challenge that we face is after we have learned all these things in psychology and so on, when we are with our family members, our friends, and we look at doing what they are doing, it so pains us that we are not able to help them. We are talking about going out and helping other people, but we are not able to help our own friends. Your friends are not seeking help, not your business.
Correct. I think that is a great understanding. Okay. Right.
Obviously, for most people, it makes them feel again helpless and angry and sad that others don't really understand.
Right. Okay. So the last one now.
It's There is invariably a right, precise, and a perfect solution to human problems, and that it is
Uh,
catastrophic if this perfect solution is not found.
hmm.
Right now, this is where I think someone had asked a question in the beginning. Arna had asked a question in the beginning, and I had told her that I'll talk about perfectionism in the end.
Right.
Right now, that is where this last belief comes in, that there is a perfect solution to something, and that's actually a bit of a problem because at times what is important is not a perfect solution but a solution, because if you find a perfect solution after the situations have changed, then that solution becomes irrelevant, plus
Correct.
the amount of delay that happens because of perfection. So for those of you matlab, who are looking at promoting yourself by using videos or by writing a book and so on, this is one of the challenges that you're going to face going forward. There are times when you record a video, you want to put it online. Let's say you're doing a small quick video on anxiety so that you can spread the word about anxiety or mental health. You put the video out, and before putting the video out, you watch that video yourself, and when you watch it, you don't like it. You're like, अच्छा इसमें ना थोड़ी सी वॉइस इंप्रूव हो सकती है, थोड़ा सा मेरा मेकअप अलग हो सकता है, थोड़ा सा लाइट कंडीशन अलग हो सकती है. And in that video that got shot would probably not get published for the next 1 year.
Right.
Ask me, it took us 8 years to finish my book, which is hilarious because, to say the truth, I knew the content of the book even before I started writing the book. It's based on my life story, so obviously I knew it like the back of my hand. And it took us 10 years to 8 years to write it. Why? Because we kept fidgeting with it. We said, अच्छा ये line improve हो सकती है. Eventually, the editor told me, नितिन इससे ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं हो सकता अब इसके अंदर.
Right.
Right? Now, what we could have actually released probably 6 years back, it got delayed for 6 years. Luckily, we have now learned from it and we are not making the same mistakes with videos and everything. So we kind of still, as long as the overall quality is good, we are not really too fidgety about how perfect it is looking and what is happening in it.
Right. Nitin, I have a friend who, so there is an educational learning platform called Byju's, who I think they were first, one of the first ones to come up with that kind of an idea, and they really caught the market by storm and everything. And my friend, I was sitting with them one day, and they told me कि मुझे ये 3 साल पहले idea आ गया. I was just looking for the perfect partner, the perfect situation, was doing my research. So perfection में somebody else and came and took everything away, kind of, you know.
So that's where the problem with perfection comes. And when, for example, I think Anna said in the beginning that for her, it's either perfect or nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's so how do you work with it? Okay, so this is how I started working with it. With videos, for example, what we started doing was when I shot my first video, I did not like it at all, right? And it again took like at least a month and a half. We shot it, reshot it. Then eventually, I think Misbah told me that, Nitin, I think you've shot it too many times. Um, why not just show it to other people? Let's see what do they have to say. We showed it to 5 people and all of them liked it a lot. And I kept wondering, how can they like this video?
Right.
Right? And then at now, obviously, over the years when we are working with other therapists and other people, uh, it just so happens that all of them have come back and told us the same thing, that we have tried recording a video, we have tried doing certain things, and it's just that we don't think it turns out to be so fine. So when you're creating something which is created by you, never judge it by yourself. We are generally the worst judge of what we do. Leave it to other people who is our target audience. Select 4 5 people, ask them if they like it, release it. If they don't like it, no matter how perfect you think it is, change it.
Yeah,
Because your
very
target
true.
audience needs to be able to understand that.
Correct. Okay, some questions, some comments. Many clients come with the last belief. Uh, Says Himali. Jagriti is saying, can you share some other source or material for positive intentions? I've gone through the video, the episode, but it was not clear to me.
All right, I'm sharing a link with you, which is on the iChar's website, which contains basically a detailed understanding of positive intention. There's also a webinar that we had done for our participants few weeks back, which was a follow up of the entire process of positive intention. If you're looking for a question and answer kind of a thing in group, then that probably is a video that you would like. It is again on Aicha's channel, but the article that I'm sharing is more structured.
Hmm. Right. Okay.
Just give me a moment.
Because you're sharing, Trinka is asking for the details of the book.
Okay, so I'm sharing the details of the book also, the link to the book also. The book is currently available on an offer for people who are Kindle Unlimited members. I think it's currently available for free for a limited time for them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay? So this is the positive intention article that I've shared
And I have a
about.
request to make, once you finish reading the book, please post a review.
Yeah, that will be very, very useful. First, I'm also sharing the link to the Amazon page. If you have an Kindle Unlimited subscription, then currently I think this is available for free on that. Otherwise, it's like 199. But
It's
I
very affordable.
really think that book is worth a lot more than that.
So it's a self-help guide based on Nitin's own love story, which is a very interesting combination to be found in a book. I haven't come across any other. I read a lot. Okay. So like fiction, non-fiction combined. Okay. Prashanti is saying then it must be a challenge for the live sessions. No, no, not at Prashanti, not anymore.
Not anymore. But Prashanti, to be true, between me, Misbah, and Mamta. So Misbah is my wife, and she's also the director of the organization that we all obviously are associated with. Um, uh, Between us, we had thought about starting webinars and live sessions like what 4 years back, 3.5, 3 years back, Mamta.
Now you're making me feel really bad. Let's keep it at two.
Okay, but 2 years around, and
Yeah.
obviously, to be fair, for us the concern was not about coming in front of the screen. We were already recording videos and so on for our online modules, but the idea was we kept thinking that there's not enough time, there's not enough time, and in the last 1.5 months we have probably
Oh my
covered the
goodness.
entire last 2 years ka quota.
We have reached, if not tens of thousands, definitely thousands of people
Oh,
between the
actually, a
three
lot
of us.
the three
More?
of us together would have reached matlab, on an average the videos are reaching out around 1500, 1700 people. So we have done around 40, 45 webinars by now. I have done around 35 webinars, 40 webinars in the last two,
Same here.
1.5.
Same here. So multiply. Oh, oh yes, interesting. Thank you for that calculation.
Uh,
Right. Okay. Prashanti saying I was just kidding, guys. That's we're taking it all in good jest, Prashanti. We're just
yeah,
sharing.
and I'm actually agreeing with you because that's not wrong. I'm telling you, it took us 2 years to be able to start doing live like regularly. And now that we have started doing it, we know that we'll be doing it a lot more frequently. At least even after the lockdown gets over, we would be there once a week for answers and questions and so on.
Yeah, I think Nitin, ever since we started True Talks, sometime before that, I don't I can't think of a single day where we haven't done anything live. Whether
Yeah.
it was a webinar, I mean, whether it was for a specific group or on Facebook or something, right?
Correct, but Mamta, there it's also because we started running the anxiety support groups and so on, which are like very regularly happening. So,
Right, right.
just to summarize this, when we are talking about this, because coming back to what we were talking about, if you are in this state where you're not able to shoot out videos, you're not able to go live on sessions, or you feel that you want to complete a book, but the book can be improved further and further. See, remember, everything can be improved further, right? When we started with the courses that we conduct like 7 years back, I thought they were the best courses, and I genuinely believe they were the best courses then. But when I look at what we are doing today and I compare it to what we did then, I feel the journey has been huge. So, and we wouldn't have taken that journey if we wouldn't have started. So that's the thing about everything that you do. If you record a video, you release it, you don't like it. After 3 months, you can record it again. वो किसको याद रहने वाला है? You can always take the previous videos down, right?
And there's always the next video, the next book, the next article, the next blog. So don't worry.
Um,
Okay.
Interestingly,
Atri,
before we just
Atri is reminding us for the recording of the Ho'oponopono process.
Hopono, Atri, I remember that I would record it in a couple of days. I've just completed a workshop today. So probably tomorrow, day after tomorrow, I should be relatively more free. I would record it and put it up. Thank you for the reminder.
Okay. Okay, Trinka is saying that's too encouraging. Thank you, Trinka. Prashanti is saying, I have attached you both and you are awesome. I've even watched you side talk, so I know for a fact that Misbah is awesome too, but you two are still my favorite. Thank you, Prashanti. Okay, oh,
Prashanti,
I've watched you. Okay, thank you,
yeah, but
Prashanti.
you're actually looking at Misbat as a host right now. You have to hear her speak when she is the guest. You would kind of have a very different understanding of it.
Yes. So we'll do one series with Misbah and Nitin, one series with Misbah and me. Then you can decide who are your favorites. Okay. I think we need to wind this up, Nitin. Let's go back to
Correct.
our discussion.
Perfect. Sure. So now to complete what we were talking about, just keep all of these things in mind. Um, Lastly, because we were talking about books and articles and so on, I'm just sharing one more example of how it can get kind of useful. So a lot of
Right.
I have a friend who had written an article once, and the article was based on a workshop that he had attended. And in that workshop, there were certain facts that were told to them, that certain researchers that were quoted and they thought that the researchers are actual researchers. So he quoted those researchers as a part of his article without doing his due diligence. Now, when he published that article, there was someone who really torn him apart because the facts
Oh,
mentioned in the article were majorly wrong,
okay.
right?
Okay.
So what he did was very interesting. So when he saw that comments, he went back and he checked and he recognized that the facts that he has quoted are actually not facts. He
Okay.
wrote a long comment on the post saying that I'm really sorry for having put out this post. He did not take the post down, by the way, because that post was trending because of all the what should I
Comments
say,
around it.
the comments and the controversy that it created. So
Right.
he allowed that post to be there. He posted a comment on it saying, "Sorry, I did not do my due diligence. I had attended a workshop from where I got this information. I assumed that the information provided to me in the workshop was a fact, and I put it out as I received. I would take care of this in future. That I would research my facts, even if they are quoted by someone that I trust." And then he added, "I would also go back to the institute and tell them that probably they have also been misinformed." So he did not really blame the institute. He kind of turned it around and said that I would also do my bit to be able to help them realize that they need to change certain parts of their curriculum. And then later he wrote an article on why people should do due diligence on before writing an article, and he quoted the previous article as a problem.
So that's called utilization, right?
So that's really called utilization of the situation that you are in,
Perfect.
right?
Great.
Now, brilliant. So now that we really need to close it, I had mentioned that there
Yes.
are 11 irrational beliefs which we have already covered,
Yes.
and that these 11 irrational beliefs are then finally summarized into three major musts.
Right.
So these three major musts would include: one, I must do well and win the approval of others, or else I'm no good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Second one is other people must do the right thing, or else they are no good and deserve to be punished.
Right.
And third is life must be easy without discomfort or inconvenience.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, if you actually think of these three, the three musts that we have spoken about, they are very, very similar to the flip model that we spoke about,
Right.
right? The only difference is the flip model just doesn't talk about the problems and the issues. We also use the flip model to be able to understand what is the end result that the client can do, or the steps that the client can follow to be able to overcome the challenges that they're facing.
Right.
Right? Now, just to end what we are saying, we have already discussed what are the ways of working with beliefs in terms of exploration and disputation both. We have also had a
Hmm.
complete episode on helping people overcome beliefs and change their belief patterns that they have. So there's a lot of material that we have already put out on that. Just one more thing in the end before we end, that when we are talking about these beliefs, at times just asking clients to do like psychoeducation where you give them an online course or a book to read which talks about all these irrational beliefs can be very useful, because when you say it to the client takes it personally because you are saying it to them personally. When you ask them to read it in a book, then because it's in a book, the authenticity of the information is greater and the client can't personalize it. They look at it like a model. It's similar to what we spoke about in terms of flip, that we first run the model so that people can agree with it, and then we start looking at personalizing it to the client.
Right.
Right? So that's the way I would recommend that you can use the learning and the understanding from this irrational beliefs model.
Got it. Right.
Perfect. All right. So someone has asked, please write the musts. Okay.
Yes.
So the first must is I must do well and win approval of everyone else. I have to put it in a comment, right? Oh, where is the screen? Yeah. So one is this.
Hmm.
Second is this.
So the I, others, and situations from flip, right?
Correct. And the third is, yes, in flip we are also looking at future as as an additional point.
That's the fourth one, right? Can we have a session on how to deal with clients with low education background, dealing with problems like OCD, anxiety, psychosomatic, and others? Jagriti's question.
Can we? We can. So let me see if I can check with Misbah and if they can put it up as a part of Psych Talks. If they can, that would be brilliant. If they can't, then probably after a couple of weeks when we come back for another series, then we will take this up over there. But I would see if we can put it as a part of the Psych Talk seasons right now only.
Okay.
Okay?
All
And
right.
so thank you everyone for being there, for helping us, asking us questions, making this as interactive as this has been. It has been really great to have you with us for the last 19 days. We have like 2 more days that we are continuing with this, and then we'll see you soon after that. Um, if you would like to get any details about what we do, the kind of work we are into, both charitable and paid, please check out our website. Um, there is, I think I mentioned this earlier, there is a free foundation course available on the website which helps you get a bit more structured information about an eclectic approach. So you can also check that out. And all of these videos are already on YouTube. So eventually you would have access to them over there also.
Perfect. And for any specific things, you can always leave a comment and we'll get back to you.
Perfect. And for those of you who are looking at reading the book, please leave the review after you've read the book.
Please post the review.
Please post the review. So
Okay.
okay,
That's
thank you.
the end. Bye bye. Good night. See you tomorrow, everyone. 10 p.m. Facebook Live. Good night.
Good night.